Welcome to Sculpture Studios. If you recognise the purple coloured background with the chocolate, yes it's chocolate running down the screen, you might have figured out that we're working for Cadbury's. We were contacted by Nigel Knight from a company called RMA Themed Attractions in regards to a giant cocoa pod. For those that aren't sure where their chocolate actually comes from, this is apparently it. A pod where the raw, bitter tasting cocoa beans are ground and harvested from the inside. Nigel sent us through some images of the kind of look he was after, saying he wanted to go for a semi-realistic texture, but one that would be safe to touch by children. The idea is that this cocoa pod is interactive, where the children could push large buttons that will be exposed on the cocoa beans on either side. The whole pod is going to be 1.6 metres long, raised on a small box section, so the total height is 1 metre. We're using a hot wire here to cut out the cubist form, and removing all the pieces to reveal the basic pod. We're cutting the cocoa beans themselves separately on a hot wire table, and these can be added to the main shape with the usual squirty foam. Now, some things look relatively simple on drawings, but they take a lot of working out when it comes to bringing them into 3D. For this job we've taken loads of measurements, repeated patterns on all sides of our polystyrene, so we can cut the main bulk shape out of a single block. After the initial cuts, everything is then carved by hand. Aden's using the usual nail and wire brushes to add shape and to accentuate the detail. When it came to arranging the cocoa beans on the front and back, the only specifications that Nigel gave was that the beans could be randomly assorted so long as the main cocoa beans lined up horizontally in the centre. Aden then needs to blend these beans into the pod itself, so here he's using a stonemason riffler to carve the more intricate areas. He's also making it look like the pod is a skin or a slight shell. Once the carving is over, bit of shameless advertising of the online logo there. Once the carving's over, we're using a sticky back foil, and this will protect the polystyrene from the resin that's going on top. For a project like this, seeing as we're only making a one-off piece of sculpture, we would normally go straight onto the foil with what's known as a blanket coat of glass fibre. We would use this as an actual exterior that we'd then clean up, but due to the general smoothness of the piece already, and Aden wanted to retain the level of detail he's carved, we thought a professional mould and a new fiberglass cast was the best option at retaining the quality. What we're doing here is creating a fiberglass mould that comes apart in two halves, and this way we can easily remove the polystyrene from the inside and then put the two halves back together. We're going to lay up inside the mould with release agents and glass fibre and laminate the whole thing as one unit. The deadline for this job was quite tight, so this mould ensures that there's minimal cleaning up required, as opposed to having to clean up a glass fibre matte surface if we'd gone down the blanket route. Now the cast is out, Kev's just reinforcing the join on the inside so that it's nice and strong. For Nigel's team to fix the sculpture down on site, he wants to create a base plate that they can fix the sculpture to. Here we're adding a frame on the inside that'll fit the floor mounting that he's having made, and this way the sculpture can be put on top and screwed together from the sides. We're making sure we remove any sharp areas before we prepare for painting, and then we go on with the self-etching primer so the paints will adhere to the resin in the fiberglass. We start building up with base layers of emulsion paints, and by following all the codes and references that Nigel sent at the start, we know we're purchasing exactly the right colours for the job. In the original concept images, the cocoa pods are very rarely one colour, so we want to give this a bit of variety and include all the tones and shades that we've seen so far. Aden then goes to work with an airbrush to work on the finer details, and he's creating a blending look around the beans that paintbrushes alone wouldn't be able to achieve. We really want to exaggerate the relatively modest detail on the skin, and to give it that real natural, gnarly look of the shell. He's highlighting the high spots, deepening the lows, so the texture is really emphasised. Here you can see one of the buttons that we've been sent to make sure that we've cut all the holes to the correct template.
Here I am just putting the finishing touches on the cocoa pod. Same both sides. Emulsion paints, and then I'm going to give it a really good lacquer. So it's like a 2K hardener lacquer, and it gives it a nice tough exterior finish because I don't think the emulsions are going to be strong enough. Plus I want to give it a nice sort of bling factor and make it nice and shiny, and they can also wash it down because Kitty's hands banging on these buttons. We're going to make it very greasy and grubby, especially with the chocolate as well. Yeah, it's going to look really, really nice, and once the buttons are in and lit up, it's going to look good.
This isn't the first time that Aden's made something for Cadbury's world. Around 20 to 25 years ago, Aden created some polystyrene scenery to show the history of the cocoa bean itself. We've recently resurrected this project, which you can find on our channel under Aztec Scenery, and all these years later, we've just found out that particular items have been rehomed and they're still being used today. This is great news for Sculpture Studios. It's nice to see pieces that last and are still being appreciated after all this time. Please feel free to leave any comments below, as they're always appreciated, and hit the subscribe button for our latest videos. You can like Sculpture Studios on Facebook, and for more of our work, visit sculpturestudios.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching.